we started an agency for user experience, and we were doing a lot of work for startups or larger companies that were trying to implement the startup mentality. So we were helping them launch new products, position themselves, go to market better, grow efficiently, etc. And one thing led to another, and inside the agency, we started this little tool that we call Xtensio.
All right, this is Dennis Consorte with Snackable Solutions, and I am here with Alper Cakir. How did I do on your name?
Pretty good. Better than what I usually hear at Starbucks. I'll take it.
Okay, so how do you pronounce your name?
Alper Cakir. It's a Turkish name with some Turkish characters in it. So it's hard to write, it's hard to read.
For Americans, it's probably easy peasy for
Yeah.
people in Turkey.
It's a very common name in Turkey, actually. It is for the era that I was born in.
Yeah. And where are you located now?
I'm in Los Angeles. I've been in Los Angeles for the last 19 years.
Wow. And before that?
Istanbul, and then I lived in London for a year for a while.
So tell me how you took that journey. How did you end up in LA? Most people go there to become movie stars.
I came not to become a star, but I came to do better as a musician. Actually, my background is music. That's what I studied. I was working as a session musician, a touring musician, a sound engineer, a producer in Turkey, doing all sorts of things. And then, in 1999, there was a big earthquake in Turkey, and that stopped basically all life. And, when there's a catastrophe like that, the first thing that goes down is the entertainment business. So, the whole business was not in good shape. And, a couple of years later, I made my way here to California. So the first years, my focus was really on music, but I was taking side gigs to stay as a musician. So I learned some design. So I was first doing some websites for people that led into being involved in what to put on those websites for people as well. And that was also the beginning of the era for where the concept of user experience was becoming more popular and understood, and I was very interested in it. So I became more involved in user experience design. And then in 2009, me and my wife, we started an agency for user experience, and we were doing a lot of work for startups or larger companies that were trying to implement the startup mentality. So we were helping them launch new products, position themselves, go to market better, grow efficiently, etc. And one thing led to another, and inside the agency, we started this little tool that we call Xtensio, which was basically came out of some necessity. We were trying to help our clients, and we were to help them better. We were trying to understand who their ideal customer is, what their message should be, what marketing and sales and levers they should focus on, etc. And we were going through some exercises to help them with these. May those be some canvases, some strategy exercises, or user personas. So we built a small product called Xtensio, which was helping others also do these exercises as well. So over time, that tool became a full-blown platform and took over the agency. And we started putting our focus more and more on the platform side, and then eventually we became all about building that business. And we're not working on the agency anymore, and we've been solely focusing on Xtensio for the last 5 years.
So we'll get into Xtensio. I'd love to hear more about it, but I still want to hear more about your story. And before we get into that, I want to clear something up for the audience. I'm also in your world, and oftentimes when people talk about user experience, they pair it with user interface. And you always see people say UI, UX. Are they the same thing, or are they different?
They're related. I mean, good UI gives you a good experience for sure. But the user experience, it has changed over time as well, but they're completely different things. User interface is really the tools that you use to interact with the products. And the experience is a little bit wider. It actually is the flows. It's also the brand. It's also how you perceive the value, etc. So like it's it's a lot of ways more abstract to start with. So it's less, the user interface is more about pixels, and user experience is more about flows. So it's more time based in a sense as well.
That's a great explanation. I think that'll help a lot of people who are confused about that.
I hope so. But I mean, I get that a lot, and like a lot of the times, actually, at the agency, we would get a lot of clients who came to us for the interface, and then like over time, they would understand that, well, you know what, actually, what we're looking for is the experience that we want to give to our users, so they can understand, use, adapt, and engage with our product. And what we were seeing was actually over time became even more prominent, because in this day and age, it's more about the whole experience, and the whole user experience is the brand. So like, and that has been the core value for Xtensio as well. So made up before us building the product, or made up by us trying to help others, if we help them create a good experience from how they, it's not only the colors and fonts, it's also the flows, it's also the feel, it's about how you talk to people, the tone, all those things combined creates an experience that makes or breaks your brand. So like, if you're consistent, if you're consistently giving the same message in a concise way to users, that leads to better experience, and that better experience leads to better understanding of the brand. So it's easier to grow brands that way.
Yeah, and you touched on a really important point, and I want to put emphasis on it, because I think a lot of small business owners in our audience uh, can get confused by this, and that is, a brand is much more than a logo and fonts and colors, right? You mentioned core values. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what goes into a brand?
Well, if it's a small business, and if you're like, I mean, small business still can be a big company in a lot of ways, actually. But let's say we're talking about a really small company. It may be a shop, it may be a restaurant, it may be a service, it may be a SaaS company. It doesn't matter. That's usually a continuum of the founder or the team behind it. So the culture, a lot of times, actually helps define that brand. So if you have the right values, and if you're able to summarize those values to yourself, to your team, if you can articulate it nicely, that translates into everything the business does. And so, of course, the colors you choose, or the fonts you choose, or the logo you choose is also a continuum of that as well. But there are all these other things that you care about. Maybe like, maybe sustainability, or being good to others, or maybe to being charitable. All those values may still be a part of your brand, which would also help make any decision you make moving forward for your company. That only cultivates that brand more and more.
Yeah. It sounds like you're pretty excited about this stuff. What made you make the jump from music to user experience and branding?
It started with necessity, because like, I mean, a musician's life is not very predictable. So like, I needed something else to pay the rent. So like, and that was, but also during that journey, I realized that there's a lot of creativity that goes into it, and that was the main reason that I was doing music as well. So like, I realized that I don't need to stick to my early childhood uh, dream, and dreams can change, and dreams can evolve, so can we. So for me, like, understanding that, okay, like, I actually like, one, building things. I like helping others build things. I also like those things to be successful. So like, I started uh, putting those pieces together, and like, I realized that I really like not only the end results, but the journey that I take whenever I'm launching something, may that be for me or for a client. Like, you start with an idea, and then there are a million paths that you can take to make that idea a reality or a failure. So for me, like, finding the optimal ways, or being able to course correct, uh, like, I mean, it's a very common thing, being able to fail very fast and then learn from those failures and do better the next time, helping others take shortcuts where possible while still being able to digest the lessons behind it has been exciting. So over time, I realized that I'm spending more and more time on this part of my life, and and also I realized that like when I was only a musician, I had to take a lot of gigs, and sometimes they didn't have to be the ideal things that I wanted to play or be a part of. It's just gigs. So like I realized that like if I cultivate this other part of my life, I don't need to do that anymore. So like now, like I'm still doing music, but I'm doing it for more pleasure, or like I'm able to do more experimental stuff. Like I can be a little bit more adventurous without uh, feeling like my expenses being paid depend on that.
I'm with you on failing fast. I feel like every entrepreneur has gone through some sort of failure in the past or a burnout or what have you. I'd love to hear one of your stories about something that maybe didn't work out, what you learned from it, and how you do things differently now because of that.
That's a good question. I mean, this is not the first. Xtensio is not the first thing that I built. So like I built a lot of other sites, a lot of other small products. Some of them were just for fun, and like some of them got too complicated. To give you two ideas, uh, I was at a bookstore, and I saw this book called "I Am Neurotic," and it's about the people's neurosis. So like how what their OCDs, etc. It was really funny. So I thought, like maybe like there are other people who would have these kind of weird things they do, they're stuck on, etc. So I built a website where people post their neurosis and their OCDs, uh, and this was in Turkish. So like that got some traction, but like this, it's not a business. It's really a fun site. So like from that I realized that what, you can create something that people consume, but how do I tie it to something that becomes a sustainable business? So like we kind of wrapped that up, a year later, and let it, just live its life course on its own. And then, like being a musician, another thing that I built was, I said, what? Actually, like a lot of the independent musicians are having hard time booking gigs. So I'm going to build a portal where musicians can create some. This was like the MySpace era, pretty much. I'm going to build a portal where people can, build profiles, and then and then I can match those profiles to venues. So like they can book, kind of like letting the venues pick the musicians that they're going to book to play in their venues. Uh, and then we started building it. So like I built that pretty much for 2 years. I kept building, and because like I didn't have the budget and I didn't have the right team for it, we started building on top of a WordPress site and started modifying it, pushing it to its limits, and eventually got to a point where like what, and we can't build this anymore, and it doesn't work. So like it really technology, like the core that we started with was not flexible enough to build something like that, and we didn't have the resources to build it from ground up. So we basically wrapped that up without launching it 2 years in. It was a side project. It wasn't the core thing that we were working on, but it was a lot of effort. So it hurt that we couldn't bring it to life. But these two examples actually taught me, one, you really need to understand what success looks like. Otherwise, it's hard to build something that you can say it failed or not. And also, the founders, including myself, have bias. So, like, we can look at something and we can say, "Well, this didn't work," but we can also say, "Well, because there's always a but." We can say, "Like, but if I do this, it's going to work." But and then, like we started for the second booking platform. We actually built a lot of features. If we just do this as well, like it's going to look awesome. It's going to work great, and we're going to convince people more. But we were actually making a lot of assumptions without going to market. So like the thing got so bloated even before launch. So it's important. Another big lesson that I learned from that was like, keep it small, launch it, see the interest, and then steer it with the interest instead of your gut feeling. you're going to be wrong. And like, I mean, I'm still to this day, I make a lot of bets on a lot of features on Xtensio. We win some, lose some, but the ones that we see a pattern for from our users are usually the features that stick and help us grow on that product. So a couple of learnings. One, define success better and accept failure if it doesn't meet that, which may mean you wrap up everything or course correct. And two, like start really small and validate everything moving forward.
That's good advice. And now you said you like building things, and I'm going to take a wild guess here and say even though not every project worked out the way that you expected, you did one thing very well. It sounds like you probably built a really good team. Do you have some advice for small business owners, startups? If they were building their team, how should they go about it?
For me, cost has always been a concern. So like I can't just go and say like, you know what, I'm going to just hire the best people who've done this many times over and over again. For me, the thing that worked was like I try to find people that have that are promising and then enable them as much as possible. And if it works, great, give them more. Let them become the best that they can become. And if it doesn't work, don't stick with them too long. Like one of the things I've learned is usually my timeline for a new hire is if whatever reason I'm inclined to hire somebody, all our team members came in with the understanding that the first 3 months is a trial period. So we tell them, look, like we think that this is going to work. We hope that this is going to work, but no hard feelings. It may be mutually not a good fit, right? So like maybe you're not going to like it here. Maybe you're not going to feel appreciated, or like maybe it's not going to be a good match, or maybe we're not going to think that you're a good match for this. But like we're willing to give you that opportunity for 3 months. Run with it. And generally speaking, I have not seen anybody beyond that 3 months surprise me. So like if something doesn't work for the first 3 months, and if you're not 100% sure about that person at the end of those 3 months, there's a good chance that like giving them another 3 months is not going to work out. And also another thing that really worked out well for us is being able to hire people for their traits instead of their expertise. So like if somebody's curious, if somebody's a team player, if somebody's hardworking, if somebody's organized, if somebody's willing to take chances, depending on what the role is, I try to enable those people and let them become better version of themselves in their career. And having done that, for example, in the past, I had people who came as interns for marketing became senior UX designers at Apple, or my current product manager at Xtensio started as customer support, customer service, and customer success. And now like she's basically running the show on the product side. So, but that didn't happen overnight. And like I really believe in working closely with people, especially early on. And given the company sizes that I've been involved with, it's been possible. So like I never ran a 100 people company. Like I'm usually my team size is around like 10, 15 people. So it's still possible to work really closely with people, understand their strengths better, and enable those strengths. For me, it's really about understanding people's strengths than understanding people's weaknesses. And then if they're strong at some point, maybe like I can open the path for them to double down on that strength instead of trying to fix everything that is maybe not ideal in them.
Now, this looks like a pretty cool platform, Xtensio. Did you self-fund this, or did you bring investors?
No, it's completely bootstrapped. So like we started this out of our agency. So at the agency, we had some resources, and we had a lot of outside contractors that we were working with. So we started allocating a couple of people to build the initial MVP. And then, over time, the first year we did not monetize it. And so like that 1 year was the transition period. And over time, those part-timers and contractors became the full-time workforce behind Xtensio. And once we started monetizing, it's since then, the last 5 years, basically, it's been funding itself.
That's amazing. So help our audience understand in a few words, what is Xtensio? What does it do?
It's a little bit different from where we started. Xtensio is now a full-blown collaboration platform for creating, managing, and sharing business content. So you're able to create any document that you may need at your business. May that be a strategy document like a user persona or a business model canvas, or it may be a sales sheet, a one-pager, it can be a report. So on Xtensio, you create living documents similar to how you would build a web page. It's a drag and drop editor for creating good-looking branded documents.
I feel like a lot of people have attacked this problem in different ways. What makes Xtensio different? Why would I choose Xtensio over Google Docs?
We looked at the market. It's really about the need. So we realized that especially the smaller companies have an issue creating impactful documents. May that be for sales, may that be for their internal use. Creating something impactful requires a couple of things. One, it needs to be a continuum of brand. So like the Google Docs, etc., you're not going to be able to do that. It's going to be always Google Docs. Xtensio is very branded, so you're able to create your style guide, pull your colors and fonts, and everything you do or everything your team does is always within your brand guidelines. So like that helps companies build content and scale up content efforts without breaking branding. That's one. The second thing is we realized that actually what we call documents or what we call presentations have drastically changed. It's not about the paper size anymore. So like we were always thinking about pages, but now like we're more about screens. So Xtensio documents are all responsive, so they would look good on any device. We also realized that there's a broken flow when you need to create something that looks branded. So the flow goes like this: the team jumps on Trello or a project management tool. They try to define all the requirements. Then they go into a Google Doc. They create the copy. That copy goes to the designer. Designer designs a draft, and then there's a lot of attachments that takes place in the email chains where changes are made or changes are trying to be made. So all that flow, and then once the document is completed, it's a static document. It's a PDF, and it's done. And if you need to change something, and if you send it to a client or a prospect, it's done. You can't change anything. So we thought that this whole process was broken. We still think that it's broken. So like we invented a new format. We call that a folio, and a folio is a responsive version of a document. So when you create something on Xtensio, one, it's online collaborations like Google Docs. You're able to work with multiple people in real time, and then it's when you got something, you can design documents. So like it's also like PowerPoint or Google Sheet, presentations where you can create more advanced layouts with Xtensio, and then it's responsive. So once you finish with it, you can do multiple things with it. So you can present it in full screen, like you would do for a PowerPoint presentation. You can share it with a link, which would look good on any device, may that be a phone or an iPad or something. You can also download it as PNG, PDF. You can embed it on your website. You can add passwords. You can customize links. You get reports. So like it basically combines a lot of the steps you take to create something impactful and merges them together to simplify.
That sounds great. And when it comes to merging things together, does it also integrate with other platforms or no?
So Xtensio actually helped. Well, these are living documents. So on Xtensio, you're able to not only create static documents, but you can add bars, like graphs, charts, etc. But you can also embed videos. You can embed other pages. You can embed other presentations, maps, etc. So like you can embed anything that is available on the web into your document, and that becomes a part of your living document. So when you send the link, And then, you could create a mood board with it. You could create a one sheet that has your map and, maybe a video from YouTube or whatever service you want to use. So like the contents of the page can include anything from the web, basically. So like we made it super easy to include dynamic content on those folios.
Oh, that sounds great. So it feels like that puts people into a better position for success. And that brings us to my favorite part of the interview, our snackable solution. Why don't you go ahead and tell our audience what your snackable solution is?
What I've seen over the course of the years from founders is not having clarity about their brand or what they're trying to build. So a lot of the times, the intention is great, and it's a lot of times very creative too, but there are validation points that people can just go over a checklist and say, well, how do I define my brand? Well, how am I going to make this thing successful? Why would people buy this? Or would people buy this? Who would be the ideal customer for this? And for that, would be one of the templates that we build, I think, will be useful for your audience as well. So if the audience can go to xtensio.com/templates, we have hundreds of examples that templates were built, and the strategy templates are great for this. They can find brand positioning, our business model canvas. Those two exercises will help them really define their businesses better. And this is useful for multiple things. So a lot of times, a lot of the founders are either alone or they're maybe a couple of people. So that's a good start. So this helps them really understand, where they should put their focus, how to prioritize things, what to clarify better. This will help them go to investors if they need to, with a better understanding. This will help them market to the right audience early on better. This will help them pinpoint their strengths and avoid the pitfalls as much as possible. Those two exercises to start with. But it's also very useful when you're building up a team, because the minute you have 4, 5, 6, 10 people, now what you think about a business or what you think about an idea is not the same as the others that you brought in think about it. So it's very common that slight differences in understanding in target, or the slight differences in understanding how you're going to grow, lead to bigger problems. So if you can, as a team, build these exercises and share on an ongoing basis, that helps focus everybody on the same thing at the same time, which accelerates growth tremendously.
Okay, that's great. Now, for those who don't know, can you explain what a business model canvas is and some of the elements to it and why it's important?
Business model canvas is going to basically look at multiple things. So it's going to help you create a clear understanding. Let me go there as well, which is going to help, I think, all of us. So business model. Let's focus on the business model canvas for now. So it's going to ask you a couple of questions. What is your unique value proposition? And that's front and center. So why? And you ask some of these things to me as well. Why is Xtensio different? Why should I use it versus other things? And every business has something unique about it. If it's a restaurant, maybe you're all about sustainability. Maybe it's all about cleanness. Maybe it's about the price point. Maybe it's about the location. Maybe it's the cuisine. Maybe it's the type of people that work at your restaurant. Maybe it's the recyclable materials you use. Maybe it's how frugal you are. It can be anything really. So defining your unique value proposition is the center of it. But business model canvas also is going to ask you other things. Who are your key partners? So when you're doing this, how are you going to market it? So who is going to help you reach the target audience? What are the key activities you're going to do? So let's say you're building this company. What are the things that you need to go over to reach that audience and convince them that you are the viable resource for them. How do you interact with customers? So like, is it, how are you going to reach them? Is it going to be through social? Is it going to be through flyers? Are you going to be buying ads? Maybe it's the radio. Are you going to be being guest on podcasts? So like, how are you going to relate with customers? Who are the customer segments? So, and I see this a lot. Another very useful template on Xtensio's arsenal is the user persona template. So defining your ideal customer persona is very crucial to building a successful business. So you should be looking at, okay, among all these people, who cares about this? Let's say you're building a restaurant, and then you know about your price point, which helps understand who will be the ideal customers. Maybe like you're for students, or maybe some budget for people on a budget. Maybe it's for people on the go. So like maybe it's for moms who are not able to spend time cooking at home that much, but they still care. So understanding the needs of that user persona helps you with everything moving forward. It helps you choose the colors. It helps you choose the menu items. It helps you defining your marketing strategy and marketing message, etc. And what are your distribution channels? So how are you going to, again, reach those people? So let's say if it's moms, maybe you need to go and find mom groups and promote to them. Maybe you partner with daycares. So what are the channels that you can utilize to reach those people? What is your cost structure look like? So like, yes, we also want to make money, but it's about also, it's usually you make money if you are mindful about your costs. And what are your revenue streams? Maybe maybe you can be creative. Maybe like if it's let's use the same example. If it's for moms, maybe it's about creating a meal plan for them. Maybe you're also charging for lunch boxes. Maybe you're charging for sponsorships, etc. So like the business model canvas helps you ask the right questions so you can really clarify a roadmap moving forward.
Yeah, that's great information. I've used that framework for a number of projects in the past. A professor I met recently, not when I was in school decades ago, but recently, was a big advocate for this, and we did it just using regular spreadsheets. But it sounds like using Xtensio is probably a better, faster way to do it that gives you more structure and more tools. That's wonderful. So how do people find you online?
The usual places. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, and my email, alper@xtensio.com.
All right. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and this was great information. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, Dennis.